Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
What a wonderful place to be. Thank you so much. I'm Sue Kohn-Taylor. I live in Auckland in the beautiful New Zealand, and I'm 58 years old. Now, I'm going to go back a wee bit in time in terms of giving some context to my story. So when I was very young, and I'm talking a very young child of in my probably 10 or 11, I spent a lot of time on my own. I was fascinated by people, absolutely loved people, watched people, liked tuning into people's energy. And the interesting part about that was I used to get lost a lot in my own head because my mother had depression. I was the fourth child, and she was kind of a little bit over having children, and I spent a lot of time playing and just being lost in my own head. And people became a very great fascination for me. Moving on quite a few years, I left school and I went to university, and I had great dreams of becoming an incredible businesswoman. And in my second year at university, I was actually at a university that was away from my hometown, and it was about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. And one particular weekend, my flatmates and I decided that we wanted to go back to our homes in Auckland and go and see our parents. And we had a wonderful weekend. And on the return trip on the Sunday, as we were returning to university, we were in a head-on car accident. Now, the whole story really begins from there. I was not in a good way and almost died. I had a serious head injury. I was de-scalped. And in amongst a whole lot of other injuries, the head injury caused me to lose my short and my medium-term memory. You can imagine that someone at the age of 19 who thought they had the whole world ahead of them and was what they thought was in their prime of having fun in life, to suddenly find myself living at home again with my parents and looking at a bleak future because I had to leave university. We were about to start exams and I couldn't even remember what I had been studying. Back in those days, even though I'm not a dinosaur, I used to go to the doctors every week. The rehabilitation back then for head injuries was incredibly poor. Nothing like it is today. And back in those days, I used to go to the doctors once a week, and he would have a pack of playing cards and he would show me a card and put it down. And if I could repeat what that card was, I was having a great week. And he would say to me, get some more rest, go home, and we'll see you next week. And I kid you not, that was the best that I had. You can imagine after a few months of that, how frustrating it was. And my friends basically moved on with their life and forgot about me. And I found myself in a bit of a deep hole of wondering what was going to happen to my future. And it was almost like a thunderbolt that hit me one day, that I just thought, I have to take this into my own hands, because sitting here doing nothing and feeling as if my world is crumbling, not fulfilling, unhappy, and not really knowing what my future was, is not a good place to be. And that day, I decided to take my own rehabilitation into my own hands. Now, this is where the story gets really interesting. In that rehabilitation, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about humans and the way that we operate. I understood that my mind had to be my partner in success, not my greatest enemy. I also realized that we are so much more powerful than we realize, that we have more choices than we even know, and we have more influence on how we can actually live our life. I learned about the mind, positive psychology, and over a period of 2 years, doing a lot of mindset, a lot of attitude work every single day, after 2 years, I rehabilitated myself. And as you can see, I'm here. And I definitely have a very good memory. And this is my own hair. I often get asked if it's a wig, but no, it's my own hair. But I do have a big scar that runs across my head. But the key that I realized from that experience was just how much influence we can have over our mind and then over our life. Following on from that, I went to work in different corporate industries and then started a business of my own. And a big thing that I used to see all the time was just people around me struggling and getting caught up in life, in external factors that they just had no control over, and kind of focusing on things that wouldn't make a difference. And so 15 years ago, I decided to start my own business in the mental fitness company. And so in that journey of rehabilitating myself and in my early 20s, I discovered that so much of what I learned in that time could be applied to everybody, whether they were a CEO, the cleaner, or a mum at home. And so the mental fitness company was formed, and I started coaching and working with organizations to help them with their sort of equipping individuals with the mental fitness skills and the personal development to manage stress and pressure, to help people stay energized and focused, which was essentially a big learning of mine. The principle of what I now teach in my organization is about self-leadership, that we have to lead ourselves if we are to have the powerful life that we want to. It all starts with us. It's how we lead our life that is really important. And mental fitness, the framework that I use, was something that I developed, and it's basically formed around 2 pillars. And one pillar is about the mental fitness skills that we can learn, which help us show up every day as our optimal self. And the other pillar is about our personal development, the things that we need to learn and understand about ourselves to improve. And that's the part I find really curious, that we need to be curious about ourselves to develop ourselves, as opposed to berating ourselves or sitting there and not doing anything. So the work that I do now, I work with hundreds of people every month and thousands of people a year, doing workshops, doing one-on-one coaching and speaking at conferences, sharing the message of how important mental fitness is in today's world. Because I think we all know how complex the world is, how fast-paced it is now. And for us to keep up with the constant change that is going on, we have to really keep up and keep developing ourselves if we are going to show up as our best self. And my story that I tell throughout my life to this point really resonates with people, because the car accident was one massive learning to me in my lifetime. But I swear life came and threw lots of other massive challenges to me to ensure that what I was teaching around mental fitness was actually robust and could form a great foundation for other people. I lost my best friend to suicide in my 20s, and I was the last one to speak to her. It was devastating. I lost my 7-year-old nephew who choked on some carrot and was there in hospital when we had to turn the life support system off. I lost both my parents within 6 weeks of each other unexpectedly. And there have been many more occurrences like that in my lifetime. But what I learned from that, what I call the gift of that car accident, I can apply and teach others to apply to big challenges, the ups and downs in our life, because I know it works. And throughout all the challenges that I've had in my lifetime, I have always gone back to the principles that I learned when I was in that car accident, recovering from that car accident all those many years ago. I think we all find it's easy when times are good to go through life, and we forget to do those things that actually support us and give us a really good foundation when things go downhill or unexpected things happen and challenges arise. And I think we all know that over the last few years, with what's happened globally with the pandemic, it really tested a lot of people. Life is life, and life will continually throw challenges at us. But what I also know and recognize is if we build the skills, if we build that great foundation for ourselves, then we have the confidence that when things do happen, that we have the skills, we have the tools, we have the strategies to actually ride through those challenges in a much calmer way, in a much more connected way, and in a way that we come out the other way out the other side with a feeling of growth and expansion, rather than shrinking into a place of fear and feeling as if life is getting at us. And there's a big saying, one of my favorite sayings that I often ask people, and it's, are you letting life happen to you, or are you making life work for you? And there is a big difference between those two statements. And for me, self-leadership in today's world is very much about making life work for you. And of course, what I see, this foundation of having mental fitness is absolutely key. And an important part of mental fitness that I have found for many, many people is the actual self-care part, the well-being part, and how often we tend to put ourselves last. We don't put ourselves first. And it's something I have always learned throughout my life, that if I invest in myself, if I do the self-care, if I do the well-being that makes me feel great, and makes me feel energized and focused, then I can have a big impact on the people around me. And that comes down to the energy we exude. And as we know, energy can affect people, or it can infect people. And I'm very much about, having good energy and creating ripples around you. So in principle, that is my business. I love what I do, and every single day I get the privilege to work with all sorts of different people across the globe, in New Zealand, in Australia, America, and Europe. And it's an absolute privilege to be showing people and getting people excited about the fact there is so much more that we can do if we lead our own life in a really positive way. And that is using core skills of mental fitness.
Wow, Sue, what a journey. It's amazing how something that could have stopped you in your tracks in terms of your injury ended up turning into a career. How
I
many people
know.
find themselves flat on their backs, having to learn to walk again, do things again? So, if there is somebody who's in that position right now listening to this podcast, what would you have wanted somebody to have said to you at that time? Give
Oh,
us 3 nuggets of wisdom.
3 nuggets of wisdom. I wish someone had said to me that you have a lot of support networks and mechanisms around you. You don't need to do this alone. I did do it alone, by the way, but I realize now how much support there was around me. I would have loved someone to say to me the positivity and the optimism of looking at your few years ahead and keeping a vision in place of where you're going, because that is motivation of where I see myself going and where you can see yourself going if you set a vision. And I'd say the other nugget that if someone had shared with me was to go within and really trust what your inner self is saying, because that is where the power is. And if I think back to my own journey, I discovered how powerful my intuition and my inner talk and self-talk was. But it took me a while to understand how precious and how we can actually build that to become our own self-coach. Those would be 3 nuggets.
That is really interesting, becoming your own self-coach. So besides going into this doctor and having to remember one thing every week, what else did you do for yourself? They say that the human brain is powerful and you can create those new neural pathways. Can you remember anything specific that you did outside of what the health professionals were telling you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I started doing little things because it became this basic. I used to take my shoes off and I couldn't remember where I had put them. And I would be constantly asking my parents, where did I put my shoes? Where did I put this? Where's that? Where's this? Where's that? And so it was retraining my brain. And one of the first things that I did is I used to take my shoes off, but put them somewhere where I could see them, where I would, put my coffee mug down where I could see it. And I would go back and then ask myself, where did I put my shoes? And I would go, oh, there they are. And it became that basic, especially for a short-term memory, of just reinstating those neural pathways. I recognize too that when you have an injury, a head injury, you're stressed. There is a natural stress that is going on. There's also a lot of healing. So it was important to be in really calm environments for me. And one of my saviors was actually going to the beach. And I had a wonderful friend who used to come and pick me up and drop me at the beach. And I would walk on the beach and just be at peace and in a state of calm. And I think it was in those moments that I heard more of that inside positive talk of, it's going to be okay, you're going to get through this, you're going to come out the other side. But in essence, apart from some really simple tools like that, I slept a lot. I gave my brain lots of rest. I really focused on short bits of information and conversations that were there. And I asked people to repeat things and to ask me questions so that I could repeat things back. And those were some really simple, basic things that I did, and I kept on building from there.
That's just amazing. There were small, but very, very significant things that you did to help yourself.
Yes, definitely. And that building that inner self coach was absolutely paramount, because we all know that inner critic, that inner talk that we sometimes have to ourselves, can be really unhelpful. And I knew I had to turn my mind into my best friend, my partner in success. This was my partner in success, and that self-talk.
Now, having a disability or an ailment like brain injury is difficult because people can't see that there's something wrong. Describe what that experience would be like. What can be done for the people around you to be more supportive, do you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I think, when you have a broken arm or a broken leg, people see the plaster and they go, oh, you've got something going on. I guess it was a little bit different for me because I did have a big scar in my head. And that was there for quite a while because I had part of my head shaved. So people knew something had happened. But I have to say, I was really upfront with people about talking about it and just saying, look, I might repeat stuff, I might forget stuff, but I just ask for you to actually help me. And I must admit, the first job that I went into, when I felt like I was ready after a couple of years, I really had an amazing boss that I shared my journey with and said, this is the first job that I've had since my car accident, and I feel like I'm really great, but I'm just letting you know, in case there's things you notice, to actually just let me know so that I can work on them and be a little bit more self-aware of things that might be happening. But by even sharing with people what had happened in my story, people were so encouraging. You always see the most beautiful side of humanity, I think, when things happen like this. And people were always asking, what could they do? How could they help and be part of my rehabilitation journey? So it was quite beautiful.
But that was because of you. That was because you initiated that.
Mm-hmm.
If you hadn't, that wouldn't have been the case.
No, and I guess, if you transfer that to everyday life, where people are actually struggling,
Yes.
struggling with pressure, struggling with stress, struggling with overwhelm, we have this feeling that we're the only ones that are struggling. And this is a big message that I do share with people, about the fact that we are all very similar. We are all the same. And it doesn't matter who you are in this world. People have struggles. People find life challenging at times. And it doesn't matter how much money you have or where you live or how incredible you look at other people with their lives. Everybody has struggles, because life is life. And it's important to understand that actually sharing your struggles or the challenges that you're feeling yourself and maybe not feeling mentally up to it, is actually a great opportunity for connection with other people, because we know everybody has struggles. There is nothing shameful about it. It is the human mind, it's the brain. And we are complex, and life is complex. And so we are all going through the same thing. And I would just remind people of that actually the greatest healing and often the greatest recovery and the help from other people is just by sharing that actually maybe you're not doing okay right now because of some challenges that you're having in your life. So normal that you'll find other people who will go, oh, you know, I've been through that, or, oh, I feel for you. I know what that's like. You know, how can I help? And connection from that is absolutely gold.
Yeah, you're very right. Now, you talked about energy. Let's go into that a little bit, because there's some people who might not be aware of the energy they're putting out and how they can actually change that and harness that. You know, a few years ago, I started listening to things around the law of attraction and how we are putting out this vibration, and it's all about the heart coherence. Delve into energy a little bit more so people can really get what that all means.
So I'm really passionate about energy and what that means for all of us, because at the end of the day, we are energetic beings. We are driven by energy. But as I said, you know, energy is catching, it's contagious. And we emit energy whether we feel it or not. And, you know, the great examples of that are, you can go into a room in a social occasion and you just feel vibes from different people. In a team, in an organization, you feel the vibes of different people within your teams. So I always say to people, you know, tune in, have that self-awareness, and just sense what vibe, what energy you might be giving off, because it is contagious. And we all know what it's like to sit or be in the presence of what I call an energy vampire. It's exhausting. But we also know what it's like to be in the presence and the energy of someone who is optimistic and connective. It's a very different feel and a very different vibe, and you can see it. There's so much more when we tune into our self-awareness of the energy that we can pick up, not only from ourselves, but from other people. And so one of the many key techniques that I talk about with people in terms of mental fitness is actually every day, multiple times a day, is actually tuning in to our energy and asking yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I? 1 being really low energy, because that will show up in all sorts of different ways. And if you're a 10, then of course it's going to show up in a really optimal way. But if we're not tuning into our energy, then we don't know how we need to support ourselves, or how that's going to show up and how we can use it during our day. And of course, energy comes in lots of different forms. But one of the big things why I really support people putting themselves first for their own self-care is very much about, if we think about our body and our shell of our body and like a battery, and you see a battery that's full of green energy, it's going to operate very different to one that only has, 20% charge in it. We need to look at ourselves like that, because if we're running like a lot of people are at sort of 25, 30% charged, then it makes everything harder. Our mind doesn't work for us. We don't connect with people, and we get what I call a lot of those below the line behaviors, where we might withdraw because we don't have the energy. We don't do our best work. We're not solutions focused because we feel negative because we're so low on energy. It has an impact around us in so many different ways. And of course, I always say to people, be responsible for the energy that you take into a meeting, that you take into a room, that you take into a relationship. And of course, for those people that are working, it's about being responsible for that energy that you take home at the end of the day. And I have a wonderful story of a client who was actually a litigation lawyer, and his energy when he went home at the end of the day was just about breaking his family. And after a few months, with some tweaks and changes of the way that he looked after himself and what he did as rituals on his way home, completely transformed that family. So we can see the bottom end of energy being quite destructive, and the higher end of energy being incredibly empowering, but also what I call creating ripples of positivity around us.
I love that. So let's finish our interview with one last question. Let's have a little thought experiment. If time was an illusion and I could take you into the future to the 90-year-old you,
Yes.
everything you're doing with your mind fitness, I can see you being one of those vibrant old ladies with a razor sharp mind. And we all need to be aware of this, right?
Absolutely.
What you're doing to exercise and use your brain is like a muscle. Unless you use it, it will die.
Mm.
I want to go and have a conversation with the future you. Based on how you're living your life and what life has taught you up until this point, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you there?
I would congratulate myself on wise choices and for recognizing the power that we have as humans to influence our life. And I would also be grateful for the knowledge that I have picked up along the way from so many amazing clients that also help me grow, but also from all these fabulous people around the world who are also showing up and sharing their gifts, because I too have learnt from them. And there is so much wisdom and information in our world that, as my wise 90-year-old self would be saying, I'm so grateful that I plugged into everything that I could, and that I'm still at 90, vibrant and full of the joys of life, and my body works well for me because I've really looked after it from a well-being perspective. And also just the gratitude along the way of appreciating all the beautiful people, the beautiful moments, and for constantly, as I've gone through my life, looking for what I call the 1,000 treasures every day. Because, you know, I think it's easy to look at the world in black and white, but the best place to be is to actually look at it in color and look for those treasures every day. But building your own foundation, I'd be very grateful for building a foundation that has lasted me to be an amazing, vibrant 90-year-old who is still making an impact and creating ripples in the world. That would be it.
I love your energy, Sue, and I can see you being that crazy little 8-year-old woman, just vibrant, doing her thing. It's a lesson to all of us just to remember to use our minds, exercise our brains, be constantly learning. They say that taking up a language or dancing or painting or doing something physical helps in that later part of life as well. Thank you so much, Sue. What an honor to have met you. I miss New Zealand, and hopefully I'll bring you to Melbourne, or we'll meet at a conference in New Zealand. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women who are coming in with tips, ideas, ways that we can grow and age with dignity and grace. So if you want more information on getting you yourself mentally fit, I have Sue's website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. She's also on LinkedIn. Please reach out and start working on it now rather than waiting for later. Awesome. Thank you, Sue. Bye for now, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep